Just a heads up before we get started, we will be talking about some things that some people might not be totally comfortable with. Just a heads up before we get going, and hope to see you later on in the video. Childhood, typically for a lot of people, brings forth a sense of nostalgia. Warm moments, your innocence fully intact, experiencing the world often for the first time, in ways you never would again. For this reason, coming-of-age stories have always been a staple of popular literature and media, often allowing the audience to self-insert and relive, in one way or another, the magic of youth. In reality, however, childhood is often not as glamorous as we remember it to be. For a lot of people, it might have even been ugly. Coming of age is hard, puberty is kind to no one, the sudden gain of extra responsibility, your first heartbreak. Growing up can be really difficult. Most times in popular coming-of-age media, we follow a character as they learn some valuable lesson or undergo stress that leads them to becoming a better person. Redemption also is a common theme within these stories. We all hope that we too can experience this kind of growth in our formative years, resilience during the difficult times of our lives, after which we can emerge better than before. I think my understanding of coming-of-age stories was one of the reasons why I hated Goodnight Punpun. When I first finished the series after buying physical copies of every volume, all I could think was, I hated that. I went to sleep feeling a wealth of emotions, and the next day I just thought that I hated that. The day after, I kept thinking of Punpun. The day after that, I kept thinking of it. A week later, and I couldn't get it out of my head. No matter what I did, this story just wouldn't leave me alone. Every time I tried to pick up a new book or series, I thought only of Goodnight Punpun, the coming-of-age manga by author Inio Asano. For a moment, let's refer back to what I said about coming-of-age stories acting as vehicles for self-insertion. Many of us are attracted to these stories in hopes of reliving just some of the monumental moments of our early lives. Punpun thrives off of its audience inserting themselves into the story, its author practically forcing you to do so by drawing his main character like this. Punpun himself is holding a mirror to you. There's no discernible human appearance for you to separate yourself from this character. As stated earlier, stories like these play on the innocence we all held when we were younger. If you don't mind for a second, think of something from your youth that has always given you a warm feeling. Even if it doesn't stick out immediately, there's a chance that when I say, think of your first friend, that you feel nostalgia. Think of your grandparents who may not be here with you still. Think of that one teacher who you might have really liked. A stranger who showed you kindness simply because you were a child. Have you found that thing that brings you joy? Well, if you did, hold on to it. Because, and I apologize in advance for doing so, but I'm going to demonstrate how Goodnight Punpun plays on your innocence. Do you remember first experiencing the death of someone close? Do you remember the first time you truly felt betrayed by a loved one? Can you recall a negative experience which shaped the person you've become, something that truly hurt you, changed you in some major way, trauma twice your size that you had to grow into as you aged? The titular Punpun's greatest downfall throughout a majority of the story is his inaction. He's quiet, reserved, shy, and a little sad. He doesn't speak all that much. He's often a victim to his surroundings, rather than being proactive against the issues that arise in his life. This is the Punpun we know throughout the majority of the story. Much later on, however, through Punpun's family, we learn that he was a happy, outgoing child. Nothing like the main character we followed throughout the story. we learn that he changed one day, when he was 7 or 8 years old and Punpun and a friend had gotten lost in a neighboring town. It turns out that he was chasing a shooting star, because that same friend told him that he once caught one. A childish story like one we all shared at a young age. Perhaps this could have been the beginnings of one of those nostalgic moments. Youthful excitement, fantastical stories from nothing but a shooting star. But it wasn't one of those moments. While chasing the star, Punpun's friend Watanabe was struck by a vehicle. The police soon found him, rushed him to the hospital in critical condition, and returned Punpun back home. Goodnight Punpun is a coming-of-age story not for the conjuring of nostalgia, but about the loss of innocence. The moments we don't want to remember, the ones that left us with scars. Punpun's home life is a wreck, his mother's abusive, his father absent, his uncle constantly trying, but failing. Every character close with Punpun is both a victim of abuse and an abuser themselves. All have been done wrong and done wrong in return. Inio Asano walks a very thin line within his writing, attempting to get you, the reader, to empathize with his characters, all of which are stuck in a horrific cycle of destruction, both of the self and unto others. Goodnight Punpun shows us how, in each and every little moment of our formative years, ugliness could be lurking right behind us. It's showing what may become of us and others when we do not confront our trauma, the damage we are capable of dishing out and receiving in return. Through each section of Punpun's life, we watch helplessly as he's exposed to the worst aspects of humanity. Experiences, I assume, many of us can relate to. The death of someone close to you. The confusion you may feel if that person was abusive. He's the constant victim of emotional torment, of physical and sexual assault. The only thing Punpun could have maybe one day been nostalgic for was his relationship with Aiko. However, due to both of their upbringings and worldly experience, this relationship inevitably ends too in disaster. Our characters are stuck in a cycle of trading scars. Now, I'm going to be fully transparent and say that I really struggled with how to end this video. It seemed that no matter how much I wrote, I just kept heading in the same negative direction. Goodnight Punpun is not kind, it doesn't have a happy ending. It is innocence lost. It's childhood trauma destroying these characters repeatedly throughout their lives. So I put off finishing this script, ate dinner with someone I love, and watched a movie with them. Now, stick with me here. Trust me, this is going somewhere. That movie was Saving Mr. Banks, the one about Walt Disney's adaptation of Mary Poppins. Again, stick with me. It follows mainly the author of the original novels, P.L. Travers, who in the film is in her mid-60s. Her Mary Poppins was a sort of fantastical retelling of her own childhood. Throughout the film, it's revealed that she suffered through some traumatic events in her early years. Her father, who she idolized, struggled with alcoholism and died at an early age. Her mother struggled with being his wife and with being a mother. Now, in Travers' later life, we see a woman who is entirely closed off, uncooperative with others, and with a mean streak. She states something along the lines of her own family wouldn't know if she was in the same room as them. Of course, through Disney magic, she comes around by the end. This is technically a Disney film after all, but what pushed me to talk about this here was something Tom Hanks as Walt Disney said to her character near the end of the film. When speaking on his own struggles early in his life, he simply said, "I'm tired. I'm tired of remembering it that way." Walt was trying to convey that he makes his films so fantastical and extraordinary to instill hope in the next generation who may need it, while also allowing himself the privilege of looking at his own struggles in a way that doesn't hurt so badly. Goodnight Punpun is ugly, and I hated it, for causing me to self-insert and live through tragedy I wanted no part of. If there is one shining light at the end of all of this, it is how the story quite literally forces you to look at life differently, to observe how fragile all things are, and to try to be a better person, to maybe save a few scars from yourself and others. Nostalgia does not live here. These are the moments you wish to forget. However, like a Walt Disney, it's also okay to look back at these moments and learn from them. And most importantly, to forgive yourself and the child within you. To not serve a life sentence for something that may have happened to you long before you were the person you've become. Allow yourself not to fall into a cycle of destruction. To take action before it's too late, before you can no longer stop hurting yourself and others. I'm not sure that I could, in good faith, recommend this series to you. If you plan on reading it, just please be careful. If you have read it, let me know how it impacted you. And please, whatever you may be dealing with at this moment, take care of yourself and those around you. Hope to see you next time for a brighter video. Bye.